the trade went down just before we were about to record our podcast. It's not official, but it is about to be official. The Los Angeles Lakers, which will be a talking point of this podcast, by the way, have traded Kendrick Nunn and 3 second-round draft picks to the Washington Wizards in exchange for Rui Hachimura, the 9th overall pick in the 2019 NBA draft. As some of you may know, if you've been following along, there were some clips, some stuff about Rui not being happy in Washington. He wanted to get traded. There was that quote of him saying, hey, do you want to stay here? And he said, I want to go where I'm wanted. And clearly the Los Angeles Lakers wanted him. 3 second-round draft picks. Kendrick Nunn, who has been a pretty big disappointment for that team. I would say this is a highway robbery for the Lakers. I think they have you ever watched Dora the Explorer? Yeah.
Of course I have. This is swiper no swiping all day.
Swiper no swiping all day. This is exactly what it is. They came and Dora was like, "Oh no, it's swiping." Anyways, either way.
I love the Dora impression. That was 5 stars. Oh
Thank
my
you.
God.
I appreciate you.
I didn't know your voice could go that high.
Listen, man, we do voice acting on the side, commercials. Holla at your boy, ladies and gentlemen. But yes, that is essentially the deal that went down. The Lakers, they get someone who is going to be a restricted free agent this summer, Lauren. Someone who's young. I believe he's only maybe 25 or 24, 25. I'm going to double check his age real quick. But look, he's a younger player.
24.
He's 24. He is a wing, sort of a wing player, although he's probably more of a 4. He's struggled in terms of shooting. He only shoots 33% from behind the arc, averaging 13 points this season. He had a rough last season because he missed a significant amount of time due to personal reasons. And he came back this year. He's had a pretty decent stretch for the Wizards, but it didn't seem like they were on the same page in terms of a contract extension. And because of that, it obviously, it kind of moved from there, and the Lakers ended up nabbing him. Now, I don't know which side you want to talk about first. Mm-hmm. I feel like the Lakers side is the more easy side to talk about. So what are your impressions on the trade so far?
I mean, when I saw the alert, I didn't believe it, because I was like, this is absolutely highway robbery, and we'll get into the Washington side of it. But for LA, even though some people might question the fit, the shooting, the size, like where he fits, and him maybe not being their number one need overall, to me, he just gives them flexibility. Like when you're 24, you can pretty much, and I think Rui's the type of player that can grow in a lot of different directions. So I think it was a fantastic pickup for the Lakers when you're a team, and this goes for any team, not just the Lakers, but when you're a team that needs to identify situations that are maybe not panning out very well somewhere else, but that could look completely different in a different situation. You need to go identify those situations, especially when you're dealing with limited assets. And so for the Lakers, I think it's a phenomenal move. The fact that they moved Kendrick Nunn and only second-round picks and still have other very tradable contracts. And I'm not referring to the Russell Westbrook contract, which could still get moved, but Patrick Beverley, Wenyen Gabriel, like they've got smaller contracts that they could still move. So I think it's a good deal for the Lakers, trying to find lineups where he can fit, whether it be staggering him, whatever the case may be. I think it just gives them flexibility and options. And having the size, especially with there being times where Anthony Davis might not be available. Again, having guys that give you more size that aren't a Damian Jones, Wenyen Gabriel, prototype, I think it's an added bonus. So I love the move for the Lakers. For the Wizards, I don't know that I'm too thrilled if I'm Bradley Beal. I mean, again, I will say you never know what's going on behind the scenes when there's kind of a disconnect with the contract extensions. Like that can be like one of those factors that's kind of just laying over you that is just it's not good. But it always sucks when you have a guy that was taken top 10 overall and then you turn around just a couple of years later and move him for a pretty underwhelming package. So for the Wizards, again, you never know how bad it was, but it doesn't look great.
Look, I get it. First-round draft picks get moved all the time, especially when things don't work out. And he wasn't going to be extending there, obviously, because of the contract negotiations. But he was your 9th overall pick in 2019. He showed a decent amount of promise in college. I think in his first three and a half seasons, if we're not including last year, despite health and injury stuff that happened to him, I think he showed enough promise to be like, okay, let's kind of kick the can down the road and see what you look on your second contract. I understand this from the Wizards' perspective if they're saying Kyle Kuzma is our guy. He is the number one guy we want to re-sign this summer. They've mentioned it 1,000,001 times that he is part of their long-term outlook on things with Bradley Beal and maybe even Kristaps Porzingis. That's kind of like their mid, big three that they're creating there.
Sure.
But at the same time, let's say Kyle Kuzma is not interested in re-signing and Kyle Kuzma decides to walk this summer. And now you're left with, okay, we have Denny Avdia, we have Corey Kispert. Those are our wings. Those are the guys that we have. And now you don't have a Rui Hachimura, a younger guy, to kind of back up and fall behind, right? You don't have that guy you can kind of depend on if Kuzma decides to walk. So for the Wizards, getting 3 second-round picks and Kendrick Nunn, who I think will be out the league probably very soon, just because he hasn't been what people imagined him to be after his rookie season. He just really has fallen off a cliff. And the thing with second round picks, I don't know if you feel this way, Lauren, but like they're not as valuable as
really?
People make them out to be. I don't think so. I think like, okay, if you're going to be sending out 3 second round picks, those second round picks can come back to you very quickly. You can acquire
100%.
second round picks
For cash.
For cash in the trade deadline. Literally on draft night, if you're like, I want a second round pick, you can go ahead and get a second round pick.
You can.
So I don't think that was enough value coming back for me.
Yeah.
I would have preferred some kind of first round pick, even if it was protected, heavily protected, that converted into 2 seconds or something. That would have made a lot more sense for me if you're from the Wizards side of things. The Lakers, we talked about this on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, but they just need guys.
Yep.
They just need rotation players, guys who can fill into a rotation and be solid. And honestly, despite Hachimura being a up and down player, still working on himself, still developing, still young, I think he is a guy. I think he is a rotation player. I really do think he's a guy that probably sticks in the NBA.
Yeah.
And I think he will inevitably get a little bit better. The other aspect of this is that when you play with Bradley Beal or Kristaps Porzingis, those aren't guys that can make you look better on a basketball court. LeBron James, Luka Doncic, those type of guys, those are the guys that will accentuate your strengths. They will make you play to your strengths. LeBron is a guy that's going to make Rui look really, really good.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I can even add to this, what they got Kendrick Nunn for in free agency, obviously you're not committing a whole lot of money. You're not committing anything long-term. You move him for the second-round picks that, again, like we said, you can get second-round picks like that if you really want to. The easiest position to replace in the NBA is a depth point guard, an offensive-minded, offensive-oriented point guard, and the Lakers are pretty much always the top destination in the buyout market. So for them to essentially move someone who was having an underwhelming year, they didn't have long-term money committed to, there wasn't a whole lot of previous investment there, to bring someone in like this, who we're talking about the fit right now, but there's our last podcast, we talked about LeBron James being the most likely superstar to ask out. Yeah. So there's a world in which all of a sudden, you know what, things take a turn, and all of a sudden they're back in that, retooling, reset stage. And if you have a young guy to add to that core like Rui Hachimura, again, it just gives you flexibility. So I think it's a really solid move for the Lakers, and I think that there's a very real possibility that they end up adding more point guards via the buyout market, or even just via trade that really doesn't end up costing a whole lot.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now just to double check. So Rui Hachimura, he's hit 33% of his catch and shoot threes this season. That's essentially, look, the Lakers have struggled from the 3-point line as a whole, but even having a guy like Rui, by the way, last season, catch and shoot threes, 47% for Rui Hachimura. So he's shown an ability to shoot before. I think, especially with guys like LeBron James and Anthony Davis creating space, there is a situation where Rui will actually be the shooting help. Yeah, right? Yeah. He'll thrive. And I think that shooting help is necessary for the Lakers, who are in desperate need of that. Obviously, they had that huge comeback last night against the Blazers, which was a massive win. They're kind of, to put this into perspective, and I think we can probably talk about the Lakers and where they are. Because, ladies and gentlemen, if you've read the title for this podcast, it is about the teams, the three teams. Lauren and I have picked three teams each that need to be very aggressive at the trade deadline. Go all in, buy now, be buyers in this market. One of those teams that both of us probably agree on is the Los Angeles Lakers. And they're showing that right now. They're showing a willingness to do that by trading for Rui Hachimura. And I think the main aspect of this for me is like, look, now you have even more pieces to work with. If you remember a few months ago, it was Nunn, Beverly, and 2027 first for something else. Now they've broken that up. It's Nunn in 3 seconds for Rui Hachimura. Okay, how can we move Beverly and a couple other, maybe a first-round pick for someone else? And now let's see if we can move Russell Westbrook and another first-round pick for something even bigger than that. And now you have 3 or 4 rotation pieces coming in to play with LeBron and AD. Yep. That to me is that's an ingenious move. I think that's a really smart move from the Lakers. And I think that makes a lot of sense. When it comes to them being buyers, they need to be aggressive. Like we've talked about this before. This is a team that absolutely has to go all in because LeBron James is playing out of his mind. He's keeping the Lakers within play-in, playoff range. I just tweeted this out last night, but the Pelicans, who are 4th in the Western Conference, right? Are only 4 games ahead of the Los Angeles Lakers, who are 12th in the Western Conference.
That's crazy.
4-12, just 4 games separating them. That means you go on a 4 or 5 game winning streak, you are right there.
Yep.
With the, you know what I mean? So for me, it's like, look, you could pick any team in that middle pack of the West that should go all in, that should buy now, because the West is wide open. Yeah. And I don't mean to go on like this whole Lakers should do this spiel, but if you're the Lakers and you end up as the 8th or the 7th seed and you're facing off against the Nuggets, who you've had your fair share of playoff battles with and you felt comfortable playing before, and you face off against the Grizzlies, who are young, exciting, very, very good, but they're still young. They're still figuring it out. Or the Pelicans, who are also young and inexperienced. If I'm the Lakers and I'm looking at that, I'm saying, look, I like my chances. Give me LeBron and AD in a series against those guys. Give me some rotation players I can rely on. And let's see what happens from there.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I think that they're finding themselves in a position where we're starting to see this. Okay, you have this trade, and I think just about every person is going to say that the Lakers won this trade. Yeah. But this is just a step, because what the Lakers could still do going into this deadline, like you mentioned, their current position in the standings and what it could look like if they just get on a hot stretch. And continue to have everybody healthy. This could be a legitimate problem, because it would not take much for the Lakers to make one maybe bigger move, and then maybe even another very small move that kind of just propels them to the top of the standings, even, because they can have more talent if they really want to, especially making a move like this and still having picks. And so I think Woj tweeted out their current 2nd round pick situation. Let me pull it up here to take another quick look at what picks that they sent out and which they have left. But I feel like for the Lakers, I'm curious to see what they prioritize now.
Sorry, Lauren. I just want to clarify the trade. It's Rui Hachimura for Kendrick Nunn, a 2023 second via Chicago, a 2029 Los Angeles Lakers second, and the least favorable second between the Wizards and Lakers in 2028. Either way, like we said earlier, that's not as substantial of a package as you'd imagine. Right. You know?
So they still have other seconds. They still have other seconds to move, and then they still have the first that we've been talking about for months now. And so for the Lakers, I'm not going to be surprised at all if they go out and go. I mean, it was talked about. I believe it was this morning that Josh Richardson is available for a 2nd round pick. And we've talked about the Russell Westbrook for Jakob Poeltl, Josh Richardson, Doug McDermott. That would shock me if it happened, but it would not shock me at all to see them go out and move, Patrick Beverly for a Doug McDermott, or Patrick Beverly for a Josh Richardson, another better system fit. And so, and then you go out on the buyout market and you sign for a vet minimum, another point guard who can come in and give you maybe not quality minutes, but can at least provide the depth that you're looking for.
Give you something.
Yeah, give you something. And so, as much as as everybody I think has joked about the Lakers and said, okay, well, even the 2 first-round picks, I don't really know what that could get them at this point. I think that they're kind of trending in a towards a direction where it's like, hey, if they want to move the 2 firsts with Russell Westbrook, they could, but there's also a world in which they don't. And they move those 2 first-round picks with Patrick Beverley and Damian Jones, and that's $15 million right there, and go out and try to get somebody else. I mean, they have pathways, and we're seeing this, I think, right now with this Rui deal. And so I'm going to be very intrigued to see, do they try and prioritize, do they try and revisit the Buddy Hield, Miles Turner? Are they interested in getting another dominant 5-man, or do they feel confident enough with what they've seen from Anthony Davis and trust his availability come playoff time to maybe focus on another wing or even a guard? Or I'm curious to see what their priorities are, and if maybe this deal and where they're at with Anthony Davis, if that shifts things as we get closer and closer to February 9th.
Yeah, and look, I mean, I think it'll be interesting to see what they end up doing. I know they were interested in Bojan Bogdanovic. Maybe that deal is still out there for them to maybe do a Beverly and Lonnie Walker, and maybe one of those picks for a Bojan Bogdanovic. That could be interesting, because now you have Bojan, who's a certified shooter, certified scorer beside LeBron and AD. You have Rui, who has shown that he can shoot in the past. Maybe that bolsters your offense a little bit more. I think that makes sense. I do think that makes a certain amount of sense, and like breaking up their assets this way to go after multiple pieces makes a ton of sense to me.
Yes, absolutely.
I look, I mean, I think this is the Lakers aspect of things right now that we're having. Just to reiterate, it's look, LeBron is, what you signed up for when you trade and you sign for LeBron James and you trade for Anthony Davis. It's just, you understand the implications when you go for guys like that, because it means that you will have to give up your draft capital in the future and now in order to win now. I mean, when you have LeBron at his age doing what he's doing right now, and Anthony Davis prior to his injury being an all-NBA guy, you have to double down on that. That is not a circumstance where you can't double down on. And I think to so far in this trade deadline, to the Lakers' credit, they've done that. They acquired Hachimura today. They probably aren't done with moves. I imagine those 2 first-round picks will end up getting moved as well. I imagine they kind of shake things up a little bit more. But to your point, and to what I said earlier, the West is wide open.